It is almost time for spring ball, and preseason rankings are ramping up. I see a lot of Garrett Greene versus Drew Allar talk out there. I'm going to settle it once for all. Who's the better quarterback coming into 2024? Right after this word from our sponsor. This episode of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com, or you can come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you.
This is for Cameron.
What is up, guys, and welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. This is another edition of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I possibly can be here today. And we're talking about Drew Allar versus Garrett Greene, which is an incredible Week 1 quarterback matchup that we get as Penn State and West Virginia fans. And there's been a lot of chatter out there that, it ranges from Greene doesn't even deserve to be on the list to Allar doesn't deserve to be on the list to Allar is so much better than Greene. You hear the camp people say Greene is a lot better than Allar. They say that Garrett was being held, the West Virginia didn't know who they were as far as having an offensive identity. The first game of last year, and who they were at the end of the year was nowhere near who they were at the beginning of the year. Similarly for Allar, he had one of his better games in Week 1 and then kind of trailed off towards the end of the year once teams figured him out a little bit. You enter new offensive coordinator Andy Colton-Mickey, and how is that going to affect Drew and his game? And there's just a ton of questions. So I've kind of put together a couple things to just kind of look at this and try to determine who the better quarterback is, in my opinion, coming into 2024. It's kind of a fun thing to talk about, something light in the midst of all this chaos this week. So to get things started, there's a ton of lists out there, guys. Pro Football Focus has this exact same list. I clipped this one from this guy here, and as you see, Garrett Greene and Drew Allar are ranked right there beside each other at 7 and 8, and that is where Pro Football Focus has it. There's a ton of different spots where these guys are ranked literally right beside each other, and that has a lot to do because their Pro Football Focus ranking is like 89 and 90. Like they're literally right beside each other. And so you see people starting to compare, because they play in Week 1, they're right beside each other in the ranking. And so you see people starting to compare them to one another, who the better player is. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have. So let's read an article here really quick about Drew Allar. Then we'll do one about Greene, and then I'll compare some of the offenses to each other, what they're going to be doing, playmakers and different things like that, and try to come up with a winner for this thing. So let's go. Blue White Illustrated says, where Penn State quarterback Drew Allar shined last season, why it matters. As always, when a quarterback doesn't have immediate and resounding success, fan bases tend to fracture around the topic. Penn State quarterback Drew Allar was good last season, but didn't play his best in big games. Nor did he play with consistently improving arm throughout the season. Yet, there was good in his play, and when you sift through his performance, and that's what we're talking about today on DWI Live Show, where did Allar shine in 23, and what does that say about his ability to play better this upcoming season? And then they go on to kind of talk about how Allar is able to play within the system. Every play, regardless of concept, scheme, or coaching philosophy, has a starting point. There's a route or route combination that the quarterback should look first. But what happens when the part of the play won't work? Most passing plays have more than one concept baked into them, and the quarterback can either go to that or make a play with his feet. Today we'll focus on Allar's ability to play within the scheme with his first revisit there. This is a facet of his game that we highlighted repeatedly during the film review of the offense in 2023, and there's a primary reason why I believe Allar can still be a transcendent quarterback despite his lack of immediate returns to that end. So when you start to look at Allar on tape, that he really does that well. He plays within the framework of the offense extremely well. What does that mean? It just means exactly what you read there. And I think that's where Allar can improve the most in this year because Colton Mickey really has that baked into his offenses. The running game with a quarterback is extremely important to him. And Drew had 210 yards last year. He's not going to beat anybody down the field 55 or 60 yards, but he can give you punishing 10 to 15 Josh Allen type runs that are absolutely devastating to deal with over the course of the game. And I don't think people are considering this when talking about Drew Allar and an Andy Kotelnicki offense, which can be a little bit difficult, but it's also simplified too. It's difficult in that there's a lot of pre-snap motion. There's a lot of ins and outs to his offenses, but also what the quarterbacks are actually asked to do, especially when you're looking at the offensive line, is kind of simple at the same time. So I think Allar is going to have some benefit to running the Kotelnicki offense. I've already got a video out on that. You can check it out. I think Kotelnicki is one of the missing links for this Penn State team to rise above Michigan and Ohio State in the division. So when talking about Drew Allar, what are some things that come to do his favor as far as the head-to-head quarterback battle with Garrett Greene? Or what are some things that we can count? Well, if we go by stats, he had 2,600 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, with a QBR of 73.7. He also had 210 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So that's almost 30 touchdowns. That's 29 touchdowns accounted for, 200 rushing, almost 3,000 passing the ball down the field, only 2 interceptions. It blows me away how much criticism this guy's got. That's a really good season for a young player. He's only 19 years old still, guys. I don't think people realize how young Drew Allar still really is and expect so much of these kids so early on. I really believe he's going to grow into a star. I believe it for a long time. And if he doesn't, I think Bo Prabula behind him has got the potential to be one as well. Now we talk about scheme. And in my opinion, this is going to be both positive and negative for Drew Allar this year. You look at Andy Kotelnicki, he's an offensive genius. We as West Virginia fans have gone up against him and his offenses, and they're extremely difficult to go against, especially when you have a mobile quarterback, which Penn State has 2 of, and Penn State, they were probably used to with the quarterback at the same time. At times, to use trickery. There's just a ton to prepare for against the Kotelnicki offense. Big fan of his work and what he does. But also there's a lack of continuity here. You got to learn the offense. It's going to be your first year in offense. The first year in an offense is usually, obviously the worst year in an offense. It doesn't happen 100% of the time, but most times that's how it rolls. So that's, to me, favors West Virginia or Garrett Greene just a little bit. If you want to talk about playmakers for Penn State, well, the transfers, they've had Fleming and Rucci transfer in. Fleming is a 5-star wide receiver prospect at Ohio State. He had around 500, 600 yards last year and 4 or 5 touchdowns, but he was like 3rd on the depth chart. Obviously, in a loaded wide receiver room at Ohio State. He's probably going to be number 1 receiver alongside Keandre Lambert-Smith at Penn State this upcoming year. Which brings me to the other playmakers, Lambert-Smith, Warren, Singleton, and Allen, alongside the interior of that offensive line at Penn State that's all coming back. They only have to replace basically the edges of the offensive line. So that's something that they have going in their favor. So to sum it up, brand new coaching, brand new scheme, but an electric, really, really good scheme that is modernized, that I think that can benefit both Prabula and Allar, but especially Allar. and it's going to be extremely difficult with tons of playmakers around, but also replacing offensive line pieces. So that's the breakdown on the Penn State / Drew Allar. Now let's talk about the Garrett Greene side of things. Greene recognized in the top 10 returning quarterbacks in college football. One way to give yourself a chance to compete for a conference title and then some, have an elite quarterback. West Virginia happens to have one of those in Garrett Greene. According to Pro Football Focus, Greene is the 7th best returning quarterback in all of college football, ranking only behind Carson Beck, Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, and Jackson Dart. This time last year, there was a lot of concern about the quarterback position in Morgantown and Greene. Soon to be redshirt freshman Nico Markfield set to duke out the starting job. And oh, by the way, he was ranked the 69th quarterback in the country. And that was last in Power 5. So even a month into the season, the Mountaineers were still unsure what they had to Greene because of limited game plan against Penn State, weak FCS foe in Duquesne, and then an ankle injury that cost Greene eventually 2 full games. When he returned against TCU, he began to show how electric he is with the ball in his hands, rushing for 80 yards and 2 scores. And from that point on, he just continued to get better and better. Greene finished the 2023 season throwing for 2,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, only 4 picks, lost 50% of his passes. He added 772 downs on the ground, 13 touchdowns with his legs, most by a quarterback since the legendary Pat White. And so when you get to start looking at Garrett Greene and kind of the things he has going for him in this argument, there's a lot to be said. And really, when you look at the stats, we just talked about it. This is a guy that had a top 10 all-time rushing season last year, very quietly. Almost 800 yards and 13 touchdowns for a quarterback is good in any year. We'll take it again this year if he can do that. I think he's going to up it, to be honest. I really do, unless we throw the ball a ton, which is very possible. One of the two are going to go up, whether that's passing total or rushing total. I would lean towards passing total, but I do believe the rushing total will also go up in yardage. Maybe not touchdowns as much, but we'll see. Either way, Garrett Greene's going to have an incredible year on offense. I truly believe that. You want to talk about the scheme. Against Kolomicki, I would lean Kolomicki in scheme as far as how modernized it is, how well it's put together and done. But West Virginia was number 1 in the country in rushing last year. Number 1. Nobody ran the ball better than West Virginia last year, statistically. So, and they returned a lot of those guys, the best left tackle in the Big 12, in my opinion, gave it no sacks last year in Wyatt Milan. The same left guard is back. Basically 5 to 7 offensive linemen from that unit are back. Obviously, All-American Zach Frazier is gone. That's going to be incredibly, you can't replace it. But I do think replicating it is going to be very possible with guys they already have in the locker room and guys they brought in, like Xavier Bosley. So you want to talk about playmakers. Well, transferring in, you've got Bray from Oklahoma State, who was really good for them last year. Had similar numbers to Fleming, actually, around 600 yards and 6 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, somewhere there. And then Bosley comes in as a freshman All-American on the right side of the offensive line. That counts, in my opinion, for this. And then you look at the offense as a whole, it's absolutely loaded. Not only do they return 5 and 7 offensive linemen, Traylon Ray, who is probably poised to be all Big 12 first team type player this year. Hudson Clement, who just had an incredible year. If not for injuries, probably would have been the leading receiver on the team. Cole Taylor, who caught 35 balls for like 400-something yards last year, will be back at tight end. Obviously, C.J. Donaldson, the running back that gave Penn State a lot of problems last year, along with Jaheim White, who set the country on fire and he played that game. Rated as one of the top returning backs in all of college football, coming back next year, who is just an electric player. So That's an incredibly imposing offense on West Virginia's side as well. And and this is a really tough one. I truly believe it's even in a lot of ways. The only reason I'm going to give this to, and here's my verdict, Garrett Greene, is because of home field advantage and continuity of coordinators. I'm just not sure how Penn State's going to look in the very first game with Colton Mickey. Maybe it'll be incredible, but I think there's going to be an adjustment process for Drew Allar with that. And Garrett's going to be rolling in from last year's offense, which was so good, and only going to be improving on that. Now, there is the Penn State defense to worry about. I can 100% get that. But I do think Garrett Greene as a whole overall the year is going to be, it's not going to be blowing either one or the other out. But I think Garrett's got the edge at this point in time on Drew Allar. I truly do. Let me know how you guys feel about that. Who do you like in this contest? Do you like Drew Allar? Do you like Garrett Greene? Let me know down below, and I would appreciate that, guys. Drop a comment below. Let me know if you like the video as well, and appreciate that. Let me know what you think about this setup I've got. And don't forget to drop a comment. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Give me a 2,000. Appreciate the hell out of that, as always. And certainly appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, you guys are my people. Penn State people, hope you enjoyed this video as well. Talking about your guy, Drew Allar. Certainly no shade on his way at all. This race can go either direction. All right, guys, that's been pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the episode and getting excited. It's that time of year. Let's roll on into football season, guys. This has been another edition of Mountaineer Paul Talk Football. This episode is over, and I'm out.
This is for Cameron. Cam. Oh.